The NFL Combine is one of the most important times of the year for aspiring NFL running backs. With running back draft stocks seemingly falling further and further each year, it's becoming that much more important to make yourself stand out. Here are the biggest winners and losers from the Scouting Combine weekend. Simply put, Bijan Robinson did everything he was supposed to do at the NFL Combine. There's no reason to believe he didn't solidify his position as 2023's RB1. At 5'11", 215, Robinson has the prerequisite size to handle a full workload at the next level. He ran a fantastic 4.46 640, and his 36-inch vertical and 10'4" broad jump were also both great. He would skip the agility drills, but everyone saw what they needed to see, including his pass-catching reps. Robinson's collegiate tape shows an all-around running back who can deliver for his eventual NFL team, and more importantly, our fantasy teams. He averaged 4.2 yards after contact per attempt in his final year at Texas and added 60 receptions for 800 yards through his 3-year college career. He was able to be an incredibly productive back despite sharing the backfield with Roschon Johnson, who is also slated to be drafted next month. Bijan Robinson should be drafted in the first or second round of the NFL draft, and in response, he's already coming off of fantasy draft boards in the same range. The mostly consensus RB2 in this year's draft, Jahmyr Gibbs is built completely differently than Bijan Robinson, but delivered the type of speed NFL teams were looking for. At 5'9", 199, Gibbs is certainly undersized for a 3-down role, but his 4.3 640 was the second fastest time among running backs and tied for the third fastest among all offensive skill positions. Because of his size-speed combination, his future NFL team is likely going to use him just as he was used at Alabama, as a pass catcher and a perimeter runner. According to Sports Info Solutions numbers, Gibbs had only 39 attempts on inside runs during the 2022 season. On those runs, he averaged 5.3 yards per attempt and 3.2 yards after contact per attempt. Compare that to 112 rushes that were either off tackle or to the outside. On those runs, he averaged 6.4 yards per attempt and 3.5 yards after contact per attempt. As with most small backs coming out of college, he's going to need some pass protection work, but if he lands in the right spot, he has a ton of pass catching upside. Let's head back to Texas and hit on Roschon Johnson, Bijan Robinson's running mate in Texas. Johnson has a good frame at 6 foot 219 pounds and hit 10'2" in his broad jump. He profiles as more of an early down banger type than his former teammate. He nearly led the Power 5 in broken plus missed tackle percentage, finishing second out of 115 qualifying running backs in SIS's metric. Though Roschon didn't test off the charts, teams were likely looking for a decent to good athletic profile considering the type of role he will likely find himself in at the next level. Though Tyjae Spears decided not to run the 40-yard dash, his on-field drills and his jumps have garnered enough attention for him to qualify as a winner. Spears landed a 10'5" broad jump and a 39-inch vertical, both exceeding the 90th percentile. It's possible that Spears decided not to run the 40 because he has once torn his ACL, but that is all speculation and leads you to question why he had no problem performing in his jumps. Spears proved that he can win in multiple ways with the ball in his hand during his final collegiate season, accruing over 1,800 total yards after 3 relatively quiet years. There are many questions swirling around the former Tulane Green Wave running back, and maybe why Spears had so many formal meetings with teams over Combine Week, namely the Commanders, Colts, Vikings, Ravens, and maybe most intriguingly, the Buffalo Bills. The NFL is getting smaller at a lot of positions, but Deuce Vaughn clocking in at 5'5" and 179 pounds is going to be quite the hurdle to overcome. Speaking of hurdles, his 35.5-inch vertical was just fine, but his 9'8" broad jump was dead last among running backs and tied for lowest between running backs and receivers. It's unlikely that any potential NFL suitor was unaware that he was small, but these numbers are pretty eye-popping. Deuce had back-to-back highly productive rushing seasons in Kansas State and accrued almost 3,000 yards on the ground in his final 2 years in college. Hopefully he can parlay some of his open field ability into a pass-catching or returner role at the next level. As only 2 running backs completed agility drills, we'll touch on a couple of backs who ran disappointing 40s, starting with Kenny McIntosh. McIntosh ran a 4.6 240, the slowest on the day despite a relatively light build of 204 pounds. The former Georgia running back was pegged as running with an inconsistent pad level through college because of his height and build. His upright running style may hinder his numbers both here and during his pro day. McIntosh had a good amount of passing game involvement in his final year with the Bulldogs, reeling in 42 passes for over 500 yards. But his running style may have affected his ceiling a bit, and he was no better than middle of the pack compared to his draft-eligible brethren in yards created after contact, breakaway percentage, or rushes that went 10 or more yards. One of the only running backs to run slower than McIntosh was former Utah Ute Tavion Thomas. Tavion's 4.7 4.40 was the slowest of any running back or wide receiver and would have been the third slowest of any tight end who tested. His relative athletics score was one of the lowest marks on the weekend across positions. Though Thomas does carry around a lot of bulk on his 237-pound frame, his 30-inch vertical and poor 10 and 20-yard splits aren't going to help his cause either. That will wrap up this portion of Combine Reactions, but make sure to watch this video for more Combine winners and losers.